Welcome to Future Focus, a financial strategies podcast where we make the complex simple. Join me today as we dive into a conversation with Tom Bacharach of RMC Group as we discuss retirement planning for our business owners. So let's go ahead and check it out. I'm Troy Branch, Second VP of Advanced Planning with Ameritas. Today we're going to talk retirement planning. And when I say retirement planning, most people, even business owners who are actively planning for retirement, think about the modern 401k, defined contribution plans. The kicker is, though, the modern defined contribution plan was created in like the late 70s, depending on who you want to give credit to. But there was a time when retirement planning, our grandmothers and grandfathers, our fathers, depending on how old you are, fathers and mothers, where retirement planning meant having a pension plan. And you got a celebration, you got a handshake, and you walked off into retirement with a pension plan. The defined benefit pension plan is not just your mother, your father, your grandmother, or grandfather's retirement. It still can be something that's had today. And today we have Tom Bacharach from RMC Group to take us through what the defined benefit plan is and how it's still viable today. Tom, let's you and I chat.
Thank you, Troy. I truly appreciate it. And I'm excited to talk about this subject. It's a fantastic subject that is actually gaining speed post-COVID. But I work for, as you've alluded to, RMC Group. We're a 50-year-old company that has been doing planning for business owners for over 50 years. So we've administered over 10,000 of these plans. But when we look back over that period of time, as you mentioned, the current retirement plan, when you look at what most people think of, is the 401k. The challenge with the 401k is for business owners, it is a limiting factor because it's treating the business owner the same as the front office clerical person. And if you're a business owner, you usually have substantially more risk. So you want to be able to put more away.
So help us, what is that defined, what is a defined benefit plan? Explain that to us.
All right, first and foremost, I'll make this as direct as possible. A pension plan, a defined benefit plan, is a pool of money at your retirement surrounded by attorneys that are standing back, allowing income to come out to you as the participant, as that business owner. There's pretty much 4 reasons why you do it. 1, it gives you the largest tax deduction that you currently can get under retirement plannings under the IRS. It can give you income up to $280,000 a year or just over $23,000 a month. It can help you reduce, eliminate, or diversify your market exposure, so your retirement as you're going into that. And it's a really convenient way of purchasing estate planning tools on a pre-tax basis. If any of those are things that somebody wants to do, it's a great way of looking forward.
We have a jargon jar where when we do things like pension plan and tax free, like those types of things, we like to not penalize ourselves, but penalize ourselves for, we want this to be simple, not complex. So the defined benefit plan, right? We think about that. So when you think defined benefit plan, describe for the folks out there, what's the ideal candidate? Is it you were kind of talking about the business owner and what the modern 401k, that modern defined contribution plan. That's a jargon jar moment, by the way, because I've said it a handful of times, and defined contribution, defined benefit, right? That's money in the jar. So there you go. No one's immune to it. But when we talk about the defined benefit pension plan, who should be thinking about it? What's the ideal candidate when we think about a defined benefit plan?
Those people that are, and there's a couple different ways that you can look at it. If I was to go with a clear cut, I would say somebody 10 to 15 years from retirement that hasn't saved enough or wants to put put more aside than the 30 grand that they might be able to put into some type of defined contribution plan, as you said, a 401k, a SEP, a simple, those type of things. Those are limiting. A defined benefit plan says, I want to put more away from my retirement because I'm going to need more. And I want a very large tax deduction to help defray some of my tax bite. So you can get the best of both worlds, but then you want to be able to take it so that you're taking that income at retirement, whether you want to take it as a lump sum like you would do when you roll over. If you leave someplace, you usually take your 401k with you. You can do the same thing with a pension plan, or you can take the income. It's up to you. We want to be able to give you options.
So let's unpack that a little bit then, Tom. So defined contribution plan, 401k. How about I just say 401k and know that I'm not trying to be all encompassing, but that's what most people think about when we think about defined. Like when I say defined contributions, they may not be able to tell you what it is, but if I say 401k, got it. You've mentioned SEP and simple. So I'm just going to say 401k as a placeholder for a defined contribution plan. So when we say,
let me unpack that for you a little bit easier, because it's in the name, right? A defined contribution, I don't care whether it's a 401k or a SEP or simple, you're defining the contribution out of your salary. You know what you want to put in. And those say, okay, I know what I want to put in. I hope it grows to something. Whereas a defined benefit says, I know what I want at retirement. Tell me how much it costs today.
Okay. And that's probably I think, again, that's making complex simple, and like it's in the name. So defined contribution, like here's what I'm going to contribute. Defined benefit is this is what I know I want at the end, or what I want you to pay me at the end. What do I got to do along the way to get to that number at the end? Right. Is that fair?
Perfect.
All right. Okay. So let's talk about, you mentioned before I stopped you and sort of backed you up to sort of definitions, you mentioned that there were some other reasons besides just that defined, just that number at the end. What were some of those things that you were talking about before I interrupted you?
Well, again, when you think of a pension is nothing more than money. It's money sitting someplace. Well, what do you do with that money? And what are the advantages that you can have with being able to put that money aside? Well, there's before tax money, right? And there's after tax money. A defined benefit plan, as with a defined contribution plan, is before tax. It comes off of the top before you get paid. It takes it off the top so you reduce your taxes. Both do that. So there's a tax advantage. Okay. And then there's the retirement advantage. But then along the way, depending on what you're putting that money into, whatever basket you're putting it into, it can do different things for your estate planning, because part of retirement is also hoping that it's there and you provided some type of safety for that. It's not just, here, I've got $1. It's, what is that dollar being invested in? Do I want it in stocks, bonds, mutual funds? Do I want it in annuities because I'm concerned a little bit more about my exposures to the market? Or I might even want to put it in some life insurance, which is a great way of purchasing that, but it's also a very conservative investment model. So what is it that you're trying to do as a business owner? What are your goals? What are your goals today? What are your goals 10 years from now? And what are your goals in retirement? These are all things that we like to look at when we're doing this type of retirement planning.
Now, we recently did our one of our first episodes for the podcast was on estate planning, and we had the team in. Just like, can you go tell us a little bit more about the estate planning applications, just to sort of tie the episodes together? For quite frankly, I'm just interested in like how do we see, and oftentimes do we see like how do we see business owners think about the estate planning aspects of it? of a defined benefit plan?
No, it's a great question. And unfortunately, or fortunately, unless you're in this industry, which only we are, so we think about it on a daily basis. But if you're a business owner, running, a web page design site, that's what you're thinking about. You're not thinking about retirement. You're not thinking about those type of things. So typically, in this country, estate planning doesn't really happen until late 50s, early 60s, maybe even 65 or 70. Imagine being able to do some of that estate planning in your late 40s, where it's less expensive if you have to buy life insurance, and you're doing it on a before tax basis. So you're saving 25, 30, 35, 40% in taxes. If you have to buy something, you probably want to buy it before tax instead of after tax. This is just an efficient way of allowing you to do that early and less expensive and more efficiently.
Okay. And you've mentioned, I don't think most people, well, most people not in the industry, let's say, think about life insurance in a defined benefit plan. That's possible, correct?
Absolutely. And what's crazy is, again, having spent 4 decades doing this, life insurance is an incredibly versatile opportunity that has a living component and a death benefit. Most people think of it as death benefit. Take away the death benefit, and if you're using a cash value life insurance policy, it does very, very well. There's very few investment options over the last 150 years that have consistently given you the type of returns that life insurance does. So it's another option that you can do that is part of estate planning, but also builds up equity. Why do you buy a home versus why do you rent a home?
Right. Now, just so I'm clear, because I don't want to confuse folks as far as the investment aspect. As far as the investment aspect, you're not suggesting that. So, like, you compared it to like equity in the home, like when you're talking about the cash values being used as, I assume the cash values in the pension plan example, the cash values are used as could be used as some part of the number that number that we're trying to get to at the end. Is that, am I thinking about that correctly?
Yeah, if you're using it, part of that value that you're trying to get in defining that benefit is going to come from whatever option you choose as the underlying funding vehicle, whether that's annuity life insurance or equities.
Yeah.
But just like with a home, how much value do you have in the first part when you buy a mortgage? You don't have a lot in the first couple of years, but in the later years, you have a lot. Same thing with life insurance.
Okay. All right. So if I'm thinking of, so if I'm recapping, like we understand, hopefully, like we understand what a defined benefit plan is. We understand who's the ideal candidate for it. I'd like for us to think about in part 2, like I think we probably need to break this out and let people sort of decompress, because as much as we try to make it simple, there are some folks that I imagine are like, okay, I need to think about this and kind of what was actually said. So what I'd like to do, I'd like to bring you back for part 2, where we just put some like we flex our case study muscles, if you will, and think about how this could look, so people have an idea. Is that okay?
Before you go, and
Okay.
yes, I would love to. The only thing I would like to say about retirement planning relative to our discussion today is this is only part of it, because this is before tax money. But some of your retirement planning should be after tax money. So it's understanding that it's helping you to diversify the most efficient strategies for you. and so don't ever think this is all in one basket, because you should be looking at multitude of options so that you, again, diversify not only your investments, but also your tax strategies. And this is what it can do for you.
Excellent. And that's a great way for us to end. We always love diversification, especially in a place where we're always talking risk mitigation. And we know, sorry, that's a jargon jar. Like I'm calling myself out on that one. That's a jargon jar. Risk mitigation, meaning that we want to, there's like, if we have different, like if we have in like the way Tom just described it, if we have different strategies from a tax perspective, from a tax perspective, that's one of the ways that we can help lessen risk, right? Instead of mitigate, like we can help lessen risk. We don't take risk all the way off the table, but we can help lessen it. So that's
we're sharing it in different ways, because, and I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole, but it's, you look at it and you say, I'm going to be pretty conservative in my pensions, and we're going to make it pretty conservative. And the IRS is pretty specific as to be conservative about it. But if you've got this retirement plan that you know is going to be there, how much more risk can you take in your other areas when you know you've got this guarantee on one side? It's a great way of allowing you to be diversified appropriately.
And I think that's the thing that I don't know if we, like with a pension plan, we're talking about things that are guaranteed. We're talking about amounts that the reason why we do the calculation and the reason why we could have that number at the end, what do I need to do, is because we're looking to guarantee that number. Kind of like our grandmothers and grandfathers' retirement when they got, they got an, attaboy or an attagirl, a gold watch, and, see you in retirement, enjoy your check.
It was a promise that the employer was making to that employee.
Right. Absolutely.
And that promise has to be guaranteed.
Good deal. All right. So we're gonna end there. I'll invite everyone to join us for part 2, where we go a little bit of a case study and sort of give you an example of how this can work. Certainly won't be able to go through all of the machinations that potentially could be in a defined benefit plan, but we certainly can give you some insight and at least an example of how a defined benefit plan can work. So join us for part 2. Thanks for your time and attention. Tom, thank you, and we'll look forward for part 2.
Thanks, Troy.